We are building an RB26 with a ton of aftermarket parts. This build is gonna be absolutely insane, so let's get to it. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Throtl YouTube channel. My name is Quinn and I'm here with Mickey, and we have an RB26 we're gonna be building in today's video. Look at this beautiful block. What do we got going on here, Mickey?
It is quite beautiful. So this is a prepped block from our friends over at Platinum Racing Products over in Australia. This is not actually an RB26 block. This is actually an RB25 block. We were able to get a block that was very uniform, and they were able to machine it so that we've got very consistent walls in here. The block is beautiful, and we could sit here and talk about it all day. There's a heap of parts back here on the table. So let's go through what we have here and explain to you guys kind of the direction of this build and what it's gonna be when it's done.
Now, before we show you guys the parts we're gonna be using on this RB26, I wanna talk about the engine oil we're gonna be using. This is very special engine oil by Motul. You guys know we love our Motul oil. This is actually a Nismo competition oil developed by Motul with the help of Nissan, and it's gonna be perfect for this RB26. This engine oil is gonna be perfect under the high strung conditions that this RB26 is going to see. A lot of power, a lot of boost, a lot of high RPM. This engine oil is going to be very composed, and it's not going to break down or fail, and it's going to allow this RB26 to run at really high power, whether on a dyno or on a track. So let's get into the parts we're going to be using. Starting with our short block table, we have pretty much all the lower end stuff here. We have a set of Italian RP pistons and connecting rods. I've never used them before. Interested to see how their products come together. We have a set of ACL race, main, and rod bearings going to be going in, as well as a Platinum Racing Products oil pump, and it solves a lot of the oil pump issues that these RB engines have. Of course, we have the crankshaft, which is fitted with the spline drive. So this is a stock RB26 crank, just fitted to fit the oil pump, which is really cool. We also have the PRP brace here. So this is pretty much the engine cradle brace. So this is going to stiffen up the block, and it's going to allow us to run the 4-wheel drive oil pan and get that thing set up, which is really cool. Love to see it. It's unfortunate that it's going to be buried in the bottom of the engine. We have a new water pump, and pretty much all the accessory and all the little things on the engine are going to be brand new, such as the lower timing cover, rear main seal housings, just all the little stuff like that. It's just nice to have new. So we're going to be running a full set of Greddy pulleys all the way around. PRP sent us pretty much every single nut and bolt for the entire engine, which is really cool. So we have titanium hardwares everywhere, and then this is the hardware pack for the brace as well. So we have a Leask spec oil pan here. So Mickey actually sent this out to Stuart, and he went through and did it. So the theme with RB26s as oiling is concerned is leave the entire thing stock or go full bore and do literally everything. So that's what we're doing here. We sent this out. He added a lot of capacity, a lot of engine oil volume to this pan, added some internal baffling, so this thing is ready for some high power, and they rebuilt the diff, and it looks freaking beautiful. Really nice piece. And here's our trigger kit for the crank. Moving on to the top end table, we got some really nice pieces here, starting off with the Greddy cylinder head package for the RB26. So this is a recently new thing for Greddy, which is really cool. They're doing upgraded heads. This thing is an absolute monster. Looks brand new, beautiful valving. The intake ports on the side are insane. It's such a nice looking cylinder head, and it's gonna flow really well. This one is also set for a very high lift, high duration cam, which is supplied by GSC Power Division. That's part of the cylinder head package. So this thing is going to flow extremely well. We have a set of Greddy cam gears going along with it. This is another piece by Platinum Racing Products. So this is a cylinder head drain kit for the RB26. So this is gonna pull extra oil and coolant out of the cylinder head. This is gonna give everything another place to go and drain out. We have a full set of ITBs that have been completely refreshed by Ian from Remade in USA. This thing literally looks brand new. All the hardware has been taken apart and coated as Mickey wanted everything to be coated. So nice. They did all the little clamps, touches. It's such a nice piece. And of course it's fitted with a Greddy AN fuel rail. We have a Greddy intake plenum just to top the whole Greddy head package off. And here we have our PRP cam trigger kit. So we're gonna be running these. This is the exact same kit we used on the RB20, worked really well. And then we have full titanium hardware for pretty much the entire engine by Platinum Racing Products. So these are for the cam studs. We have some for the intake manifold, as well as the water pump and the oil pump, and pretty much everything else. Moving on to the turbo system, we have an RTEC manifold. We have an RTEC manifold on their Supra. We absolutely love it. We had one on our GTST. It was such a nice piece. We thought we'd bring it back, and it looks absolutely beautiful. We're gonna pair that with a G35 900 Garrett turbocharger and a 45mm Turbo Smart wastegate. We do have a ton of other parts going on this engine. This was just kind of the main ones to get it done. This is pretty cool. This is a competition oil cap by dynamo tool, which is a really nice touch. And then we have a Grady timing belt. All the timing components, literally everything in this engine is going to be brand new. The only few things that are missing that are not on the table are the valve covers. They have not arrived yet, but I think we can get started without them. So I'm very excited to get this RB26 engine build started. We have a lot of really top tier parts going on to this engine, so let's get into it. We're gonna start our engine build off with the crankshaft going into the block. Now this block has been line honed with ARP hardware in it, so we should have absolutely zero problems with speccing our main bearings, and the crankshaft itself is in really good condition. So we're gonna put everything together, make sure that we're still good, just always good to do a double check, and then install the crankshaft for the final time, get our oil pump and our rear main seal on. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the throtl YouTube channel and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss a thing. We just got our mains in and checked, and they're a little tighter than I'd like them to be, so I think we have a set of oversized bearings that we're going to drop in and see how the clearance changes. Plastic gauge is kind of a rough and dirty way to check what your bearing clearances are. Now this engine has been out to machine shop, so honestly everything should be absolutely perfect, but I like to do a double check, and that's why we use plastic gauge. So typically we'll go for a bearing spec, which is what we're at. We're a little bit tight, so we're going to throw in some of the oversized bearings to see if we can get it to loosen up a little bit, and then we'll check them again, make sure they're good. Typically engines that I'll send out to the machine shop that they're doing all this stuff, when they inspect the crank, they're miking it, they're miking this, checking the main hone or the main journal where the crankshaft will actually sit, and specking that out. So they handed it to us. We really don't have any reason to suspect it being bad. That's why I use plastic gauge. If I'm assembling an engine that I've never done before and like a block isn't going out to machine shop, then we'll bust out the mics and make sure everything's good. And plastic gauge isn't as accurate as you really want it to be, but it's a really good way to check that everything is still good. So we're gonna take these out, put our oversized bearings in, loosen up that clearance just a little bit, and then double check. We're good now. Our standard size bearings were a little bit too tight, but the oversized bearings work just fine. So these ones have a little bit extra oil clearance, which is good. So when we're flowing and going fast with this thing, we're not gonna have any oil pressure issues from the mains. So we're gonna clean all this stuff off. I'm gonna actually put this back down, measure end play, so the forward and backward movement of the crank, see where we're at. And then if we're good there, we're gonna take it all apart, lube it, clean it, put it back together. We'll be good to go. Our crankshaft is installed, everything feels good. We got all the right specs, our run out is good. So we're gonna go ahead and throw our rear main seal on. We got a brand new one from Nissan, and then Mickey's actually gonna paint the back of the engine block. This is the one part of the block that has not been painted because you couldn't get to it when the engine's on the stand. So let's get this thing on. Crankshaft is fully installed, end thrust feels good, everything is where we need it to be, our rear main seal is installed. Now we're gonna flip this block over, start gapping piston rings. Before we do that, I got a little set of grub screws that are gonna go in the oil galleries in the crankshaft, and then we'll be done. Flip it over, start gapping our rings, and I'm gonna throw you guys up on the tripod for that. We'll get it done. Right now I'm checking ring end gap, so what these are out of the box. So the ring end gap is a spec for the piston ring, so how much play is in between the end of the ring. So if you guys can see, it has an opening on one end. Now the end gap is important because having too much end gap, you'll have blow by, which is a lot of gas, the combustion gas is going past the piston down to the crankcase. If you have too much, it'll have a low compression on that cylinder, and that's not good, and it'll have a lot of blow by. If you're too tight, what will happen is if the engine gets hot or leans out or is running too much boost, the ring will expand, the ends will touch, and then it'll expand further, and the ring will go up or go down and break pistons. So it's very crucial to get the ring end gap correct. We're going to be running the ring end gap spec that they run over in Australia because they do a lot of RB engines here. Typically, you'll get a worksheet on the set of pistons, so like cast piston and forged piston have different ring end gaps. So we're going to go with the specs that these guys gave us because they're really good at building RBs and they do it a lot. So let's get this thing gapped. So there's our first ring done. So we set it at 19. If we get the 19 in there, got a nice little bit of drag. So it has a little bit of resistance. If I grab a 20, it fits, but it's got some more pull. And if I go for a 21, it barely fits. And if I pull on it, it like lifts the ring out. So we're at about 19 thou, which is perfect. That's our top ring spec. So we're gonna set our second compression ring to 21, and then this cylinder will be done. Our piston rings are all sorted, everything is good, so now we're going to start assembling our piston and connecting rod, and then we're gonna put the rings on it, get this block back on the stand and start dropping these in. So this is an Italian RP connecting rod, and we're gonna be using pistons by Italian RP. I've never used a rotating assembly by them before, so I'd be curious to see how it all comes together and if we like it or not. So first thing we're gonna do is just a quick inspection, make sure everything looks good on it. I always like to inspect all the new parts as we get it to make sure that there are no errors in manufacturing or anything like that. We have a wrist pin here, so I'm gonna check to make sure that everything slides nice. Some connecting rod sets I've gotten have had little burrs in the bushing here, so this is actually a press fit bushing on the end of the connecting rod. Sometimes you'll have a little burr and you'll have the wrist pin not sliding nice through, so it'll like get to the end, it'll get stuck, and if that happens, you just gotta take a little piece of sandpaper and file the burr down. So in this case, everything feels good, it slides nice through. We're gonna do the same thing with the piston. Make sure it slides through the piston nice, which it does. So like all the other forged pistons, we have a set of circlips here. So this circlip is gonna go in the little ridge on the inside of the piston. We're gonna pop that down. We're gonna put our wrist pin through there, and we're gonna orient the rods accordingly. So on this piston, you'll see the recess for the intake valves are a lot bigger than the recesses for the exhaust valves. So these are directional pistons. This is the intake side, this is the exhaust side, and I'm gonna put our little bearing tangs on the intake side. So that's gonna be our orientation. Essentially, oh, got it backwards. Essentially like that. So we're gonna start putting our circlips in, lube everything in the wrist pin, get that all set up. Once I get our second pin in here, we'll be done. We're gonna assemble all 6, then we're gonna throw our piston rings on here, then into the block they go. There's one done. We got 5 more to go, then we'll start throwing them in the engine. Pistons are reassembled, everything went together really nicely and they look beautiful. So I went ahead and numbered each piston. So we got 1 and 2. Now the pistons and rods themselves aren't bore specific, but the rings are. So we gap these rings for the bore that they're gonna be going into. As soon as this ring set goes onto that piston, this becomes cylinder 1. So I've got them all labeled out. We're gonna throw our rings on and then get this block back on a stand, start dropping them in. Cylinder 1 is done. These are ready to go in the engine. Before we put the engine block back on the stand, I've got a set of oil gallery plugs we have to install. So when this block was disassembled for cleaning, they took literally everything out. All the freeze plugs, these are brand new freeze plugs, and then they drilled out a little press fit for the oil gallery so they can clean this. So this oil gallery feeds a lot of things in the engine block, and having that clean is essential. So they've cleaned it, they've tapped it so we can run some plugs in. We're gonna put these in, get this thing back on the stand. Block is back on a stand. We're gonna start dropping pistons in. So we're gonna be doing 1 and 6. So we're gonna take the rod caps off, drop the rod bearing in each, and then we're gonna drop these in the bores and then check our rod bearing clearance, make sure everything's good, and then final assembly. Cylinder 1 and cylinder 6 are sister pistons, which means they share pretty much the same journal orientation. So these two pistons are going up and down together all the time. So we're gonna do those, and then 5 and 2 are also sister pistons, and then 3 and 4 are the same. So we're gonna go from the outside in, and we'll have all our pistons in. All right, there's 2 in the hole. Yeah. Cylinders 1 and 6 are in. We're at bottom dead center. We have the pistons pushed all the way down, and these are the bottom of the rods right here. So I've laid some plastic gauge on the journal. Again, we're gonna be, just like we did with the mains, checking the bearing clearances. Now, this crankshaft and this block have already been out the machine shop. They've already inspected and measured everything, and the rods are brand new and they've been measured at the factory. So this is kind of like a double check just to make sure 100% that we're okay. So we're gonna drop the rod caps on, tighten. This little piece of green right there, which is like a circle, when we compress it, it's gonna get squished. It's gonna go, and then it'll get like nice and wide, and then we'll measure how wide it is. Now, if you have something that's really tight, it's gonna squish it more and it's gonna get wider. Or if it doesn't get squished as much, it's gonna be narrower, and that pretty much dictates what our bearing clearance is gonna look like. So on our paper here, we have a little measuring. So this is in thousandths. So you can see a lot of squish, really tight, and as the clearance gets bigger, as long as you get more clearance, then the squish gets smaller. So that's pretty much essentially how the plastic gauge works. So you have different color plastic gauges for different measurements. You have some that are bigger than this and some that are smaller than this, so it just depends. We're gonna drop these rod caps on, tighten them down, and make sure we're good. And then if they are good, we'll lube them up and be done. Cylinders 1 and 6 went in nicely. Everything is perfect with them. Our bearing clearances are spot on, so we're gonna move to 2 and 5, and then we'll do 3 and 4 after. Our rotating assembly is finished. Everything went together very nicely. It feels really smooth, which is good. Doesn't hang up on any spots, and it looks beautiful. RBs are a little funky, especially this one, because this is a higher compression. So we did the math, and we should have about 9.3 to 1 compression on this thing. The new Greddy head is a fresh cylinder head casting, and so it sticks up a little bit above the deck, and the cylinder head will make up that gap, which is really cool. So overall, really nice setup. Looks good. We got some oil to clean off, but we're gonna get to installing our oil pump now. We have a beautiful billet pump by PRP and a titanium hardware kit to go with it, which is really nice. This thing is going to be amazing. So this is a spline drive. Most of the RBs, they'll have 2 flat kind of grooves on the section, and the rest of it's rounded. So our crank has already been set up for spline drive. That's one of the things they did at the machine shop. This is gonna make this pump a lot more resilient and not prone to the issues that the flat drive pumps have, which is good. So we're gonna prime the pump, get it on the engine, and then we're gonna start tackling our block brace, which is next. It's over there, but let's get this thing on. This is Buff Daddy right here. Where did we land? Right there. So this is a block brace. This is gonna add a lot of strength to the block itself. When we're pushing mad power, it doesn't come apart. Block brace is installed. So this component is a huge structure improvement on the RB26 block we're using here, or the RB25 block we're using here. In this case, because we have an RB25 block, not an RB26 block, not only is this going to stiffen up the block itself, it also allows us to drop a all-wheel drive oil pan on our four-wheel drive oil pan, which is an RB26 pan. The 25s didn't come with all-wheel drive, or some of them didn't, at least this one didn't. So it doesn't have any of the provisions for the all-wheel drive oil pan. So this fixes that, and it strengthens up the block, which means we can put a lot more power through this thing without having to worry about it. So we've got all of our hardwares in, on and torqued, aside from these. So these will actually go through the pan, through the block brace, into the block. But for now, because we have a little bit of silicone to let it dry out, I have some hardware just kind of clamping it down to hold it in place. So the next step is going to be installing the pump pickup. So this is the pump pickup that comes with the kit. So that thread's on there. This is actually from a stock pump pickup, and I've lopped the hose end off, the tube end. Welded that shut. We're gonna drill a hole in the middle and position that and weld it there. Now, the important part about this is this needs to have a 7mm air gap between the top of this and the bottom of the oil pan. So I'm gonna cut this hole out. We're gonna tack that in place, and then we're gonna go to measure to make sure we have the clearance we need, and then we'll install our oil pan. So we need this pump pickup about 7mm off the bottom of the pan. And when we put the pan on, I'm not gonna be able to measure it. So what I've got here is a glob of grease. And this is actually a little bit taller than 7mm. Oh, I just moved it. Let's see where we're at. That's almost 7mm. So this little thickness here is 7. So what we're gonna do is leave that there. We're gonna drop the pan on, and then if it's 7mm, it will touch right there, and then we'll be money. And if it doesn't touch, then we gotta move this whole assembly. So I press this in, but this can come up a little bit. We'll press it up, retry, and then if it smashes this completely and it's just like flat, then we have too much interference, and that's not good. And then we'll maybe cut some off with the pipe or whatever, and then bring it down a little bit. So let's get our pan, which is heavy. Bro, that is so tall. What is that? That's way too tall. That was way too, okay, so we gotta cut this. We gotta figure out a different technique. I thought this pipe was gonna be like within the range where we need it to be, but it's not. So we've missed by like a lot. So I've measured the depth of the oil pan and measured the deck height of the block with this. So the top of our pump pickup here should be like here. So I'm gonna lop these two off, set it where it needs to be, and that'll give us kind of our cut line, and then we'll re-weld it. A little bit of a process, but we got our oil pickup height done and correct. This thing is 7mm off the top, which is good. So we had a little bit of a range, so we could go from about 5 to about 8, 8.5. I chose 7 because that was just like a solid target number to hit, and we got there. So we're good. Ready for oil pan now, baby. We've got all of our oil pan hardware sorted. We know where everything goes. We know it's gonna go on, and now it's time to get our form-in-place gasket on the oil pan, drop this thing on, get it bolted down. We're gonna have to let it cure for about a day before we can put oil in it and reprime the system, but it should be good. We can keep moving. Waiting for the pan to dry, so I like to kind of take everything down and tighten them in kind of steps and take my time with it so it sets properly. So while we're waiting for it, I'm going to keep going, and we're going to get our water pump on here, which uses form-in-place gasket as well. We also have a beautiful hardware kit from PRP. These are titanium, they're very nice. So we're going to get this thing packed down. We're also going to be using their alternator bracket kit. So this is actually for an LS alternator instead of an RB26 one, because it's a little bit stronger. That guy's going to go out there on top of the water pump. So we're going to get this thing glued down. We're going to start installing our crank trigger kit. So this is a 32 tooth PRP trigger kit that we're going to be putting on. RBs from the factory actually don't have any orientation or any setup for crank trigger. They only go off the cam. So this is going to give us much better engine management. It'll let us know what the crankshaft is doing. Just give her more precise on the tuning side, which is really cool. So let's get this thing on. just about ready to throw the cylinder head on, but we need to change some things in the block first, mainly these oil restrictors. So this is an RB25 block, so they have 2 restrictors. So the RB26 has the rear one block, so we're gonna put a 0 restrictor in there, and then we're gonna put a 1.1 restrictor here, kind of get our oil pressure where we need it to be. So we're gonna change these, install these, and then we'll drop our cylinder head on. So I'm gonna take a punch and we're gonna sink the old restrictors down. We're gonna put one head stud in the front, one head stud in the back, drop our gasket on, and then drop the cylinder head on. So these are 1/2 inch, so these are oversized compared to a factory head stud. This is gonna make them a lot stronger, which is really nice. We got our gasket on. This is a covering gasket. I think they're really cool. This is actually not the first time we've used one on this channel. We did one way back when we built Evan's M3, but essentially I like these better than like a multi-layer steel gasket. You're less prone to leaking because you have more of a traditional gasket material on the outside, which seals really well, and then on the inside you have these steel fire rings, and these have little grooves in them that actually bite into the cylinder head and give a really strong seal. So very strong performance gasket, and yet it seals beautifully. So we're ready for our cylinder head. We got our cylinder head on the RB26, and I'm putting our head studs in now. And aside from this thing being an absolute beauty, why don't you tell us a little bit about the cylinder head?
This is actually a really special cylinder head. This is one of the first to come from Greddy Performance here in Irvine, California. This is their new head package program that is available to the public. They're also doing a turnkey engine program as well, or a long block program that you can buy directly from Greddy pre-built. So literally shows up on a crate, you plop it in your car, plumb it, and it's good to go. Because we did have a block prepped by PRP, we wanted to utilize the Greddy head in conjunction with that. So as you saw, we've got an extremely domed IRP piston, and this head was cut to accommodate that and get us to a 9.3 compression ratio. So this is actually an ideal scenario. Now, one thing I want you guys to see, and we'll roll some B-roll for you guys from the machine shop that did the work on this head. You gotta see these ports. They're absolutely gorgeous. Paper thin in here where the air is going to divide as it goes in, and then also the exhaust ports are also ported. The valves, everything has all been done. It literally turns up here in a crate and you plop it on. Now we do need to install our cams. We are using a special cam in this car, and that's why they're not installed when the head arrived. We're using a custom lift and duration that Greddy prepared for us. Actually, they're actually sitting over here on the table. We're gonna hold off on advertising what those specs are for now, but I will say that this is one of the most beautiful heads I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's insane.
What's cool is they start with an original OEM Nissan head. So this isn't a used core that's been, you know, cleaned up and refinished and resurfaced. It's actually straight from Nissan, brand new head from the Heritage program, which makes you rest easy at night knowing you're not getting something that's already got 40, 50, 100,000 miles on it.
It's 30 years old.
Yeah, it's not old as dirt. So what I can say is this is a piece of artwork in my eyes.
Absolutely.
We've also had some other RB experts inspect it, and they've had very positive things to say about the machine work and the overall quality of the head. So I'm excited. I think this is going to flow what we need it to flow to get to the horsepower figure that we're after. It's really cool of Greddy to provide this service, because I know here in the States it's not always easy to find a machine shop to do this type of work. So if you can phone them up straight away and actually just order this over the phone or online, that's pretty rad. It just turns up at your door, pop it on your prepped engine, and you're off and running.
I love it. Everything looks beautiful in this thing. The spring, the way they set up the buckets, this is already configured for the cam we have, so we don't have to mess with any of the specking.
Yeah.
The valving looks beautiful. The machine work looks insane. Like, it's beautiful.
So if you take a close look in here, you can see the port work that's been done, the machine work that's been done inside the intake ports here, and the valve areas is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this is something that only a real gearhead can appreciate. I have a stock head over here that we can take a closer look at, so you guys can see the difference between what the intake ports look like on a stock head versus what they look like now. Now that's a stock head. You see how much meat and cast flashing and everything that's in here, how rough this surface area is. You go look at the new Greddy head, you're gonna see a nice smooth ported area, and you're also gonna see that they've actually cut these back quite a bit and made them sort of paper thin and allow the air to flow through there nice and easy. So in our eyes, Greddy did everything in their power to maximize airflow in this head, and that's really the secret sauce to making a high horsepower engine, is getting the air flowing into the chambers in an efficient manner and in high volumes so that you can make more boost and more power. I'm happy to put this on the shelf for a later build now that we've got the new beautiful Greddy part on the engine.
So I'm dropping our head studs on. I just got all of our washers on. I've got this row of nuts and I'm just finishing the last set, and then we'll start torquing. So sometimes these ARP stud kits can be a little bit annoying to install, especially in the case of like an RB. You notice I don't really have any room to get my fingers down there. So you have your little Allen key. So this Allen key will actually fit the stud. That's what I use to snug them up. You get a socket that fits the nut, drop that on there, a little bit of ARP sauce on the threads and on the mating surface. And you hold the nut back, you stick the Allen key in it and just drop it. Perfect alignment every time. Never have to get a pick down there. You don't have to try and drop it. I've gotten these things jammed in between and it sucks. So there you go. Our cylinder head is torqued down. I've got our block of TDC. We're gonna get our camshafts installed now. So I'm taking the cam caps off. We actually have a set of titanium cam retainer bolt hardware from PRP we're gonna be throwing on instead of these factory style bolts, and then we'll get our camshafts on. Camshafts are in. We got this, which essentially the steel backing plate here gets replaced by this. So this is a much sleeker component. It's not a dust cover per se like the other one, but this will have our cam timing marks and it'll hold the main seal or the cam seals in, which is what we want. It's a nice sleek look. So these are our timing marks out on the side. So I'm gonna get this on, get it tight, and then we'll put our cam gears on and start timing this thing. We got our cam gears on, we got our backing plate on to allow us to time the engine. Now it's time to install our cam gears. So of course we're running a Greddy cylinder head, we have to run a Greddy cam gears. We've got an intake and exhaust here. The nice thing about these is that they're adjustable. If we want to change the power curve or add torque or add power, we can adjust these when we're on the dyno. So really beautiful product. They're always hand assembled, so we're gonna have to go through and retighten everything, which is good. I got some red Loctite we're gonna use, so let's get this thing on. Let's get this RB timed. We got our intake side cam gear by Greddy on, and we're gonna put the exhaust side on now, but we're gonna be adding this. So this is for our PRP camshaft trigger position kit, and this is gonna replace the factory cast system that's on this car. So that's gonna go right about there. And then we have a beautiful plate, which we'll get into later, that bolts to the front of this after the timing belt and all that stuff is on, that'll pick it up. And this, like the crank position sensor, is a much better, more refined way to manage and track what your camshaft is doing. So we're gonna install this kit on now and then keep going. Now that we got our Greddy cam gears on and they're timed, it's time to throw our timing belt on. We got a beautiful blue Greddy timing belt here. You guys know we love our Greddy blue, so let's get this thing on. Our engine is timed, everything spins beautifully, so we're gonna drop our cam covers on and then we'll start dressing the front of the engine. Next up, we have one of my personal favorite parts to go on any engine build, and that's a fluid damper. This is a high performance damper over a factory damper. It is better in literally every single way. It looks better, it performs better, it balances everything better, and it's just a really nice part to have on every engine. So we're gonna throw one on this here, RB26. Second piece to our PRP cam trigger kit. This is the cast bracket that replaces the ugly factory one. This is an oil filter relocation kit by Grady. The R32 oil filter on the RB26 is in such a terrible spot. It is so brutal to try and change oil on one of these things. So we're gonna add this. First of all, this piece looks freaking insane. Super rad. It doesn't look that bad when you're just staring at it. Well, first of all, this is your front diff, right? So trying to get in from underneath when this is all has axles and shafts in it is a pain. And then you'll see when we get the intake manifold on, it just absorbs everything. So it's brutal. So with this kit, it's gonna go like that, and it's gonna allow us to run -10 out wherever we want and put the filter wherever we want, the cooler wherever we want, and make it way easier to do maintenance and service on this thing. So really beautiful part. I'm excited to get this thing on, and it looks rad. I love opening Haltech stuff. It just feels so good inside. So now on the list, now that that's out of the way, woo! That's a knock sensor. So this will detect if the engine knocks, which it shouldn't, it really shouldn't. But if it does, this is here to protect us. What we have here is a PRP cylinder head drain. So this is one of the components I was talking about we're going to be doing on this RB26. So this guy is going to go on the back of the cylinder head and add a drain port for the oil and the coolant. So we're actually going to knock these two freeze plugs out, and that's going to slide in right there. So this has some O-rings on it that'll go in there. We need to tap one of these holes, and then this guy will go on. So this gives the coolant and the engine oil another place to escape out of the cylinder head. Again, especially when we put like the PRP billet pump, that's a high flow pump. So it's gonna pump a lot more oil up. We need to get all that oil out, and this PRP head drain is gonna work with that. So from here, we're gonna run a line, probably down to the tank or the sump, the oil pan, and it's gonna give the oil another chance to escape and kind of get out of the way. So this is a very beautiful component, and it's gonna help us achieve the high horsepower numbers to keep this thing running safe. So let's get to it. We got our cylinder head drain configured. That's all good. Pretty much everything on this side of the engine, aside from lines, so the coolant lines, the oil lines, pretty much everything here is configured. So we're gonna go ahead and throw the intake manifold on. Got a beautiful set of titanium PRP intake manifold studs. We're gonna throw all these on, and then we'll get our beautiful new remade in the USA intake manifold on. This is it, we're finished. However, I wanna put the throttle bodies on, I wanna put our Grady intake manifold on, I wanna get our R-Tech turbo manifold and our Garrett turbo on just to see what this thing's gonna look like all dressed up on the stand. So I think we're gonna do that. But this thing turned out epic so far. Now that we're done on the intake side, we're gonna move on to our exhaust side, get our beautiful R-Tech manifold, and get this Garrett turbo on here.
What we got here, Quinn?
That is a G35 900 turbo, my friend. Oh, 2.4. That's gonna be it. Our RB26 is complete. This was the first RB26 I've ever built. Had a little bit of fun building it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was definitely a fun motor. A little different than what I'm used to. But.
And this is definitely not your traditional RB26 build. This thing is a little over the top.
It is, it is. This thing should make some good power, and well, best of all, it looks beautiful.
It does look beautiful. And we should give a huge thank you to our partners that have been on board with this project, because this is a few months in the making here, behind the scenes, getting everything actually collated here, shipped from Australia, shipped from other parts of the country, all culminating into what Quinn has built here, which is absolutely gorgeous. And so we'd like to say thank you to PRP over in Australia, Reddy, who obviously has a lot to do with this, with the head package and all these other really nice blue bits up front. We also have Fluid Damper, Leask Spec for the beautiful oil pan and sump setup, Ian from Remade in the USA with the intake here, Artec Performance, Garrett turbos. What else we got? We got IRP pistons,
IRP connecting rods.
I think that's about it for the engine.
I think you about nailed everything.
Yeah, so I also want to say a huge thank you to Motul USA. They've been behind this build since the minute they heard about it, and they provide us with all of the fluids for this. So you might have seen Quinn using some of that. Thank you, Motul, for jumping on board and trusting us with this build and with your products. We're really excited about this, but it's time for this thing to find its way into a car. We're done with it here in our shop.
Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down in the comment section which engine we should build next. I've got a couple of ideas of what we should do, but we're going to be building another engine here very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.